Welcome to Part 3 in our training series, where we explore how to start a respiratory protection program. A comprehensive program is needed to ensure that the respirators work well and don't cause more harm than good. We'd like to thank the following individuals and institutions. In this section, we'll provide an overview of the components of a successful respiratory protection program. Note that specific elements of medical clearance, fit testing, and respirator cleaning will be covered in future modules. In particular, fit testing is complex, and we'll share videos in this module as well as in the fit testing module to give an understanding of what's involved. Some of the slides in this presentation are very detailed, and you are welcome to pause the recording at any time to review the slides in more depth. By the end of this module, you should be able to describe the type of hazard that requires respiratory protection, list components of effective respiratory protection programs, and list 2 problems that may be caused by respirator use. A respiratory protection program includes the development and implementation of policies and worksite-specific procedures for respirator use to control respiratory hazards and to prevent the spread of infections among patients, healthcare personnel, and visitors. It should be part of a systems approach to infection control. So why implement a respiratory protection program? Diseases that can be transmitted through airborne exposure require respiratory protection that filters the air and fits close to the face so that airborne particles can't enter the nose or mouth. Healthcare personnel must often work in close proximity to many infectious patients. Healthcare workers have a higher risk of inhaling infectious aerosols than the general public. Even for agents that are primarily droplet spread, if there is a possibility of airborne spread, such as with COVID-19, healthcare workers need respiratory protection. Respirators and other PPE are used as a last line of defense when exposures can't be reduced by other controls. Face masks are designed to prevent the user's droplets from reaching others. Because face masks are not fitted, airborne particles can enter through the sides. Fitted facepiece respirators, like N95 and elastomeric respirators, provide a seal to the user's face to prevent the particles from being breathed in. Elastomeric respirators are also reusable. Not shown here, powered air purifying respirators can provide clean air to the user without a face seal. How do you develop an effective respiratory protection program? To start with, a program administrator must be responsible for the program. This person must know enough about respirators to supervise the program. Training all users is very important. Training must include an explanation of why respirator use is necessary, the nature of the respiratory hazard, and consequences of not fitting, using, and maintaining respirators. Users should know that they must not alter or remove the respirator even for a short time, or the user will be exposed. An effective respiratory protection program should include hazard evaluations, medical clearance, selection of an appropriate respirator, training, fit testing, inspection, cleaning, maintenance, and storage of respirators. Lastly, work area surveillance and program evaluations are important for quality improvement. Let's take a closer look at each of these components. The purpose of the hazard evaluation is to identify and evaluate potential exposures in the workplace that might require the use of respiratory protection. You'll need to determine who has potential occupational exposure to airborne pathogens, how often they are exposed, and the level of exposure. Consider the specific diseases that the healthcare workers are exposed to, and whether those diseases require airborne precautions or droplet precautions. Filtering respirators increase the work of breathing. The medical evaluation determines the healthcare worker's fitness to safely wear a respirator. Important considerations include any pre-existing health conditions the healthcare worker may have. Medical evaluations also take into account working conditions, as more strenuous activities will also increase the work of breathing. The medical evaluation results may indicate that it's not safe for the employee to use a respirator, and that is okay. Not everyone can safely use a filtering facepiece respirator. Those who can should not be exposed to respiratory hazards unless they can use a powered air purifying respirator. As for basic safety requirements, it's important that the respirator does not impair the worker's ability to see, hear, communicate, and move. Eye protection must be worn with half-face respirators. Fit testing is one way to assess these requirements. fit testing is necessary for all healthcare workers who plan to use a filtering facepiece respirator. So, how do you ensure that the respirators fit properly? First, recognize that no one respirator will fit everyone. Most respirators come in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large, so try to fit the respirator to the face in a way that creates a tight seal. This also means that beards, corrective eyeglasses, and facial deformities might get in the way and cause a poor fit. Not everyone will be able to achieve an acceptable fit. Unless power air purifying respirators are also available, these healthcare workers should not be assigned to work where respiratory protection is required. That's why fit testing is such an important requirement for tight-fitting facepiece respirators. All healthcare workers required to wear tight-fitting respirators must be fit tested after receiving medical clearance, prior to respirator use, and annually thereafter. The video posted here outlines the fit testing procedure. All healthcare workers required to wear these respirators should receive annual training about why and how the respirators are used, and how to conduct fit checking every time they use one. This video is important to review when you plan a respiratory protection program to understand the fit process. Proper fitting is important for both N95 respirators and for elastomeric reusable respirators. Elastomeric respirators are meant to be reused. Wipe down cleaning the respirators is recommended after each use, including during fit testing. Deeper cleaning should be conducted at the end of a shift. For maximum efficiency, your program might want to make this a centralized protocol with dedicated staff. Remember that proper PPE is required for those cleaning the respirators. Another important component of respiratory protection programs are storage. It's important to protect the respirators from damage caused by contamination, dust, sunlight, chemicals, and temperature extremes. Consider where you would want your respirators in an emergency and have them be accessible in the work area. Lastly, it is important to evaluate your program. Input from healthcare workers is extremely valuable here. Some areas to assess include the respirators themselves, as well as how they are being used, cleaned, and maintained. Here are links to a couple of helpful resources. The first is the 3M Fit Test video that we mentioned earlier. The second video is a more comprehensive video on respiratory training and is about 15 minutes long. In summary, airborne hazards require respiratory protection. An effective respiratory protection program includes medical evaluations, training, fit testing, respirator maintenance, work area surveillance, and a program evaluation. Respirators increase the work of breathing, and not everyone will be able to safely wear a respirator.